Hello! I thought it'd be nice to do a little check-in of like how many books I've read this year, what are my thoughts on them. So I'm gonna be doing the mid-year freakout tag that was really popular and going around last year. It's a bunch of bookish questions like these about all the books that I've read so far this year. And then after that, I will like speed 1 or 2 sentence review every single book I've read this year so far. But first, I have all of my stats from Storygraph that I thought would be fun to go through. My reading goal that I set for this year is 100 books. Last year I read 93, so I've never ever read 100 books in a year, but I thought it'd be like a good goal. So far I've read 37 books. Will I hit 100 books by the end of the year? I don't know. It's not looking great. For my reading moods, the number 1 is emotional. That makes sense. I feel like I love me like some angsty romances. Number 2, adventurous, mysterious, lighthearted. Adventurous surprised me at first when I saw this, but I have been getting a lot more into fantasy, so I'm assuming that's where that comes from. Page number, books that are around like 350-ish are definitely my comfort zone. Bigger than 500 it for sure intimidates me. Books that are smaller, I feel like if they're a novella, then I'm excited about it. But if it's a normal book that's under 300 pages, sometimes I feel like they can't have as much depth because they're short. 100% fiction. Yeah. Not much to say about that. Genres, romance. I read 23 romances. Fantasy, 14 books. This is so exciting. I read the ACOTAR series at the very end of 2022, and that was like my first big launch into fantasy. So to see that I've now read 14 this year is pretty exciting. Most read authors, S.T. Abby. That's who wrote the Mindfuck series. Those are the only books I've ever read by her, but since it was a 5-book series, that makes sense. Holly Black, the Folk of the Air series, Cassandra Odette, which is the Entangled with Fae series, Stephanie Garber, Cassandra Clare. All of these top authors are fantasy authors, so that's pretty cool to see. Star rating, my average star rating is 4 stars. I feel like that makes sense for me. I'm glad to see that I only had 2 stars. I feel like before I read a book, honestly, before I buy a book, I really feel like I research it a decent amount. I make sure it's like a book I've heard a lot about or like read a lot of reviews and hopefully know that I'm gonna like. 29 out of the 37 books I've read this year, I gave either 4 or 5 stars. Now for the mid-year tag, the first question is the best book you've read so far in 2023. You know I cannot pick just one. So I have picked my top 2 series, the Folk of the Air series, the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, which isn't completed yet. I'm still waiting for the 3rd book to come out in the fall. Both of these are fantasy series with romance subplots, and I love them so much. What I love about The Cruel Prince is the romance subplot is enemies to lovers, and it is enemies to lovers. Like I feel like some enemies to lovers, they just kind of don't like each other. There's real hatred at the beginning. I also just love Jude, the main female character. I feel like she's such a strong character. Like she will do whatever needs to be done to do what's right. She is a human living in a fantasy fae world, and so like the fae are obviously like stronger, more powerful than her, whatever, but she still like stand up to them. And I think that's something I'm realizing that I really like in female characters, is them being like very strong, bold, like feisty female main characters. And then in Once Upon a Broken Heart, also similar feels with like the romance subplot and our lead female character, but what I really liked about this book is the world. They have all these like stories about the history, and it really feels like you're living in this fairy tale world, but like a dark fairy tale world, which was really unique. Fantasy romance is just becoming my new favorite genre. I just love escaping to a literal whole new world. Speaking of going to a whole new world, or should I say a new country, I would love to tell you guys about Rosetta Stone, which is a fantastic language learning platform. I attempted to learn Spanish when I was still in school, and I feel like it was so hard for me to retain what I was learning. So I turned to Rosetta Stone for a bit more help. Rosetta Stone takes a very engaging and immersive approach by doing things like pairing pictures with audio from native speakers, so it feels like I'm learning from a real person. And they have a pronunciation engine to help learners nail the accent, which I feel like is so vital to me in feeling confident enough to be conversation ready. And their lessons are as short as 10 minutes, which makes it so easy to squeeze lessons in between your classes or work meetings. And to top it all off, they have an app that makes it so easy to do those lessons anywhere. Learning a language is so valuable. You could put that on your resume or just really immerse yourself before going on an international trip. I'm going to Costa Rica later in the summer, which I am so excited about. My goal is to feel confident enough in my Spanish to be able to ask locals for recommendations or go to restaurants and shops where they may not speak English. What's really cool is that in addition to 3 and 12-month subscriptions, they have a lifetime subscription option. You can literally be a member for life with no renewal fees. The lifetime subscription is typically $2.99, but it's 50% off right now, so you can get it for $150 from now until June 18th. I think a lifetime subscription just makes so much sense because you can learn multiple languages languages, learn at your own pace, and brush up on a language at any point in your life. So click the link in my description to get started with Rosetta Stone. And thank you so much to Rosetta Stone for partnering with me on today's video. The best sequel you've read, and definitely A Court of Silver Flames. That's not my favorite book in the ACOTAR series, but it's the only one that I read in 2023. This one's pretty different because throughout most of the series we're following Feyre, and then in this one we follow Nesta, Feyre's sister, and I had such mixed feelings about Nesta. Like, she is kind of a hard character to like, and I think the theme for me in 2023 is morally gray characters. I've just been really enjoying morally gray characters, especially where you like fall in love with them at the end. And I know some people have read this book and still don't like Nesta by the end, but I really liked her. I feel like it makes it so much more meaningful to love characters even with all their flaws. New releases you haven't read yet but want to. Meet Me at the Lake, which is by Carly Fortune, and I read Every Summer After by her last summer and I really liked it. I admittedly didn't like the ending of that book, but I really liked her writing style and 90% of the book, so I'm excited to read another book by her. Then also out this year is The Stolen Heir, which is a spin-off to the Folk of Air series. It's 8 years later and follows Oak, and I just love the whole Folk of Air series so much, if you couldn't tell by now, and just to continue to exist in that world, I'm so excited to do. I need to get that book ASAP and read it. And then The True Love Experiment. Admittedly, I don't really know what this book is about, but it's by Christina Lauren, and I haven't read a Christina Lauren book in a really long time. And like hearing so much hype about this book coming out, I'm like, wow, I miss them as authors. I need to read another book by them soon. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Okay. So many, literally so many, but I'm gonna try and keep it down to 3. Okay, number 1, Maple Hills, which is the sequel to Icebreaker. Icebreaker, if you haven't read it, I don't know why not. It's a college sports romance. He's a hockey player and she's an ice skater. And oh my gosh, I really do not even know anything about this sequel, just that it is the sequel. Did I say it was called Maple Hills? It's called Wildfire, but it's in the Maple Hills series. This sounds cute. Wait, I'm so excited. Okay, it says it follows 2 summer camp counselors who reconnect after a one-night stand. That sounds so perfect for summer, but it doesn't come out until October 3rd. Then I'm also really excited for The Honeymoon Crashers. This isn't even a book I expected to exist. It's the sequel to The Unhoneymooners, which I feel like was like OG book talk. Like when everyone was like getting back into reading, they were reading The Unhoneymooners. So to get a surprise sequel is so exciting to me. And then A Curse for True Love, which is the 3rd book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. But yeah, those are the 3 I'm most excited for. There's literally so many. I'll put a little list on the screen. I've had this list on my notes since like January 1st, and I just keep looking at it and being like, okay, are any of these out yet? Nope. Are any of them out yet? Nope. So that's my whole list of books I'm waiting for. Biggest surprise. Okay, I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm gonna go with the most surprising plots. Without a doubt, the Mindfuck series. I loved the series so much. This is a romance between, are you ready for this surprising plot? A serial killer and an FBI agent. Like, what? That is crazy. That's so crazy. And so I don't know, I just love that it was such a roller coaster, like the romance of them like falling in love, but also she's a serial killer and she has to like hide that whole part of her life because he could arrest her. But also we got to follow his cases because he's an FBI agent who tracks down serial killers. It was like murder mystery meets romance meets like vigilante serial killer. Honorable mention would be Five Survive by Holly Jackson. This one has such a like cool plot in that there's 6 friends and they're all inside of an RV for 8 hours with a sniper outside the RV. So I think that's a cool plot. I love that it was like a short timeline, and I thought the ending was really surprising. Favorite new author, debut or to you? I don't think I read any debut authors. Like I mentioned at the beginning, there's so many fantasy authors where it was my first time reading them, but an author that I've just started reading and I'm obsessed with is Lucy Score. I read Things We Never Got Over last year, my first Lucy Score book, and I really liked it, but I feel like it took reading 2 more books by her to really cement that she is a new auto-buy author. She is my Hall of Fame author so far for 2023. I love her male love interests. I love them so much. They're like great feel-good books, but her men that she writes are like brooding, like grumpy, a little bit rough around the edges. Newest fictional crush. Okay, besides Lucy Score's men, besides my brooding, morally gray fantasy men, I'm gonna have to say Nate Hawkins. I feel like there's not enough college romance, or maybe I just don't know about them, but this is very much like the Deal vibes, off-campus vibes. I just love a book boyfriend who's like so sweet, would do anything for her, but he's also not just like that nice guy, you know? That sounds so bad to say. Like, he's attractive and he knows it, you know, he's an athlete. This book also starts out with them being like more friends with benefits, and that's all she wants. She's not really looking for a relationship, and he's kind of the one who falls first. So Boy Falls First is really cute as well. Books that made you cry. I think A Little Life is the only book that I've actually cried in so far this year. This book is so sad, like 11 out of 10 sad, crazy sad. And I think this book is so well written, but there were favorite points where it's just so devastatingly sad with no reprieve, like very few hopeful, happy moments. Do I like sad books? Like, do I like to torture myself? Yes and no. I don't know. Another sad book I read that I didn't cry in, but is sad, is Darling Venom. The girl's first love ends in tragedy. That's all I'll say. It definitely deals with mental health and grief and some heavier topics. And then when she's a bit older, she ends up running into her first love's brother. Books that made you happy. Definitely Lynn Painter books. I mean, just look at these covers and how colorful they are. Obviously, such cute, happy books. I feel like Lynn Painter is the queen of cute, happy romances. So far this year, I've read The Do-Over by her and The Love Wager by her. The Do-Over is fun. It's a time loop book, so the main character is repeating the same day over and over. And then The Love Wager I just read. I loved this book so freaking much. I loved it way more than I thought I was gonna love it. This is my first time reading a new adult book by Lynn Painter, and her banter in this book, the witty banter, unmatched. Like, I really loved it. And I don't know what it is about her writing, but whenever I read her books, I feel like I'm just reading like this. Like, just like smiling the whole time I'm reading, and I don't even realize I'm smiling. Most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received. I don't know if it means beautiful content and writing or like physically, literally beautiful, but I'm gonna go with literally aesthetically beautiful. And that would be How the King of Elfheim Learned to Hate Stories. This is a prequel novella to The Cruel Prince. Like, look at this cover. It's so pretty. The inside, gorgeous. It's got a bunch of short stories and a ton of art in it, which is really cool. It was just so fun to read this book and look at all the pictures. And I don't think I've ever owned a book that's this pretty. I just want to display like every single page. I have recently started getting into specialty or like collectible edition books. I have ordered a few and none of them have come in. They are expensive and my wallet is hurting, but I'm so excited for them to come in. I ordered a special edition of Happy Place. That looks so pretty. I also ordered My Dark Romeo. I just think the cover of this book is so gorgeous to begin with, but then the special edition is especially gorgeous. And then in the fall, I have the Six of Crows duology coming in. It's a pre-order, so I'm gonna have to wait till the fall. But I think the covers are so cool and it's annotated. And I have never read the Six of Crows duology, so to get to read it like along with her little notes is gonna be so cool. I'm so excited. But yeah, if any of you guys are interested in where I found these, I mostly look on LitJoy and Illumicrate, or I'll just like Google. That's how I found My Darkest Romeo. I think I just got it from Amazon. So you can just type in like special edition books or like collectible books, but Illumicrate and LitJoy have really cool books on their site. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? Well, let me just go get them. So this is my romance book cart. I'm obviously not gonna read all of these by the end of the year, but I'll pull out the ones I'm most excited about. A big goal for me this year is to finish series I'm in the middle of. So I really wanna read The American Roommate Experiment, which is the sequel to Spanish Love Deception. I wanna finish the Dreamland Billionaire series. So this is love. I've been really into fairy tale retellings recently, and this is a Cinderella retelling as if Cinderella never tried on the glass slipper, which sounds so interesting. Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I've never read a book by this author before, and I would love to read more books by new authors. And then Promises and Pomegranates and Hooked are both darker romances. I have been enjoying dark romances, or books with like a little more darker, gritty elements. Okay, my fantasy book cart. I want to read another series by Sarah J Maas. I would like to read the whole Throne of Glass series. That is ambitious, but I'd like to, as well as the Shatter Me series. If I could read both of those series this year, I think my goals would be complete. The Prison Healer is another series I'm excited about. Same with Dance of Thieves. I'm literally just about to list all of these. Like, there's so many I'm excited about. Caraval is another series I'd like to commit to reading because this series happens before the events of Once Upon a Broken Heart, which I already read. So I should have read this series first, but I'd now like to go back and read Caraval. I know everyone and their dog is talking about Fourth Wing. Like, everyone is loving this book, so I think I have to read this book really soon. And then on this bottom row are mysteries and thrillers. I haven't really been as into mystery and thrillers recently. I think that'll change when it comes to fall, so I'm sure I will start knocking some of these out in the second half of the year. And that is the entire mid-year tag. I'll leave all of the questions in the description, so if any of you guys want to like answer all of them with your answers, that would be so fun to read in the comments. And then let me speed through every single book I've read so far this year. There's obviously going to be some overlap because I just talked about a bunch of them. The first book I finished this year was Icebreaker, which I gave 4 stars. That's it. I feel like it's 4.5 looking back. Do you guys ever do that? I feel like I do this all the time. I'll like finish a book and then rate it right away, and then I feel like months later I don't like fully agree with my star rating. So I don't know if I should wait to rate books or just trust my first instinctual rating. But anyway, Icebreaker, reviewed in 1 sentence. I loved the found family vibes, sports romance, friends with benefits, strong female character, period. A Court of Frost and Starlight, and A Court of Silver Flames. These were my least two favorite in the ACOTAR series, but I loved getting to explore other characters, and I'm so freaking obsessed with the entire ACOTAR world. Where the Crawdads Sing. I loved that this was a good blend of genres, romance, murder mystery, and literary fiction, but I did feel like it moved a bit slow at points. Twisted Love. I love the way Alex would literally burn down the world for Ava, but he isn't my perfect ideal book boyfriend, which is no complaint to the book, that's just a personal thing. Heart of the Raven Prince, my first fairy tale retelling. This is a Cinderella retelling. I loved the chemistry and banter and how it does a Cinderella retelling but in a fae world. The Roommates by Rosie Danan. What a unique story. The male love interest is an adult entertainer, if you catch what I'm saying, which was so unique to read about. I don't know anything about that whole world. I thought the romance was like cute and steamy. Not my favorite romance ever, but I loved how really sex positive the whole book is. Wait For It by Mariana Zapata. Always love Mariana Zapata, but this book had a little bit too much slow plot points in this slow burn romance. Darling Venom, such an emotional read. I loved the romance and how this book deals with so many topics like grief, guilt, mental health, addiction, forgiveness, dysfunctional families, and so much more. 5 Survive. I love the dynamic between the 6 different characters, how they all react differently in a life or death situation, and trying to unfurl all of their secrets. The Do-Over, so freaking cute. Miss Cassandra Clare, how is she always finding new and painful ways to keep characters apart? The romance is just so good, and I love that so many of her series are set in the same Shadowhunter universe. If He Had Been With Me. I really liked this book, but unpopular opinion, I really didn't like the ending. It's sad, and it felt really abrupt to me. A Little Life, just the crying emoji. That's my whole review. Buy a Thread by Lucy Score on the best tropes: workplace romance, grumpy boss, enemies to lovers, slow burn, spicy, like what more do you need? The Mindfuck series, the craziest freaking plot, and I loved that it's romance meets murder mystery. Loathe at First Sight. I did loathe this book. Not at first sight, but by like the halfway point. If I wasn't reading it for a video, I probably would have DNF'd it. The Folk of the Air series, I feel like I've already talked about this series a bunch in this video. You know it's 5 stars. 4 Dead Queens, my first urban fantasy, and I love that it's fantasy with romance, with murder mystery. It's about a world where there are 4 queens and all 4 of them are murdered. Killjoy, what a cute novella prequel to the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. It was so fun to be back inside the world of Pip. Things We Hide from the Light. This book is good boy, bad girl, which is so fun and a trope we don't get enough. Funny you should ask. I love this as a romance between a journalist and a movie star. The one of them is famous trope is always really fun. The Once Upon a Broken Heart series, I devoured this series. I think I read both books in like 72 hours, which I feel like is all the review you need. The Reunion, what a fun concept. It's both of them are famous tropes, but I did think it was a little boring, which was a bummer because it has a really fun plot of 2 childhood movie co-stars coming together to do a reunion episode. Kiss of the Selkie, another fairy tale retelling. This is a Little Mermaid retelling. I love that this book has so many nods to the original Little Mermaid, but also has lots of its own twists. The Love Wager, what a cute, swoon-worthy book, and I love that they really become best friends before they explore the romance, which makes the romance so much more meaningful. Legends and Lattes, I know people love this book, but I didn't. I get the hype and the appeal, but it was too slow for me, too slice of life. And lastly, Happy Place. It took me a little bit to bond with the romance, but once I did, I loved it, and I really loved all the elements, the friendships, the heartbreak, and just how perfectly Emily Henry encapsulates that bittersweet feeling of growing up. That is every single book that I've read so far this year. All right, see you guys in my next video. Bye!
And say goodbye to summer.